Hello, fam. I hope everybody's blessed and having a great day. I hope you're being safe. I want to welcome you to the Hope TV, to another segment of the Grown and Sexy broadcast. Listen, we started this platform on March 19th, and incredibly, your support has been amazing. In the first 60 days of this platform, we've had over 10 million cumulative views throughout our platforms, and it's all a testament to your kind support and your generous commendations. I want to thank you for spending this time with us. We're very, very excited about it. And if you're viewing today, won't you drop us a line? Let us know the city, state, and country from whence you're viewing. We take your viewership very seriously, and we want to provide content that is specific to your demographic. So if you're watching, just drop us a line. Let us know city, state, and country from which you're viewing. Also, if you're viewing now through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, to like, to comment, or to send the link, why don't you do so right now? You help us tremendously when you do that. So I want to welcome all of you who are viewing by Apple TV, Roku TV, Twitch, those who are viewing now by YouTube, by Facebook, by Periscope, through the House of Hope ATL website, through the apps, however you're viewing. I want to thank you so very much for your support. It means the world to us. So again, if you can subscribe, like, comment, or send that link, please do so right now to let them know that some very powerful and uplifting content is on the airways today. So thank you very much. One of our flagship programs here at the Hope TV, of course, is Grown and Sexy. As we know, so much thought, so much research has gone into understanding millennials and how we can market and how we understand them and how we share with them and how we empower them. And while we appreciate our millennials and all the research that has gone into helping us to identify and support, encourage, and empower that specific demographic, we're also concerned about every part of our community, and specifically that demographic that is 40 and older. And so this platform, this particular program is called Grown and Sexy, and to our surprise, it's been one of our top-rated programs, and I'm excited to have you with us on today. Today we have three amazing guests who are going to share their stories, all unique stories, all incredible journeys, journeys of hope, journeys of inspiration, of love, perseverance, and empowerment. So I want to thank you, because all we do here is about uplift and empowerment and love, just so somebody can receive some inspiration in these difficult times. Times are tough, but people like we have on the show today can help brighten our day and help us to be encouraged to continue going. We have one guest with us today. Of course, she is a native of Mississippi. She moved to Atlanta about 8 years ago, and she's raised her son. She's done her schooling. She's done incredible things, got some amazing things happening, working on a book, and we're excited. She works in ministry at the House of Hope, providing leadership to the singles ministry, and we're excited today to have with us Sister Kimberly Grayson. What's up, Kimberly? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Welcome. Glad to have you today with us. And we also have another powerful guest who has traveled the world, lived everywhere. She is a thinker. She is a believer. She is a spiritual being who's living a human experience. She's a mother. She's gone through a lot, and she does some incredible things in terms of empowering our children. We're so happy to have her here with us. I want you to welcome to our show, Cyber Caston. Hello, Cyber. How are you today?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Great, welcome. Thanks for being here with us today. And certainly, last but not least, we have a young man with us who is an educator, who is a thinker. He's really a history maker. He was the first African-American male to ever be elected to the Board of Education of Cobb County. He works as an educator here, and he has got some incredible things that he's doing that I can't wait for him to tell you about in more detail. We're excited to have him with us, David Morgan. Hello, David. How are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderfully well, man. Happy to be a part. I'm happy to be here, brother.
Outstanding. Well, we'll welcome all of you to the show today, David, Cyber, and Kimberly. David, I'm going to start with you with the introduction. I want you to tell us a little bit about your journey. I try to give a cursory introduction of who you are, but I want the people to hear from your lips. Tell us about your story, your journey. How did you get from there to where you are right now?
Well, I certainly appreciate that opportunity. Born and bred right here in Atlanta, man. I tell people all the time, I'm a Grady baby. I was born at Grady Hospital. When I first grew up, at first that used to be like a thing of shame, like, ooh, you were born at a public poor hospital. But it became a badge of honor, actually. So did that. went to school in DeKalb County, graduated from Avondale High School. As another thing, as a matter of fact, now that you say that, Doctor, I also was the first African American to get a baseball scholarship from Avondale High School back when I graduated in '89. Yeah, so I was very happy about that. Went to Grambling State University. Went there, '89, '93, finished in 4 years. Got my degree in political science. Pledged Alpha. I know that might rub you. I hope you don't kick me off because of that, but did that. Came up back to Atlanta, and that's where I started my journey on education. I think that's one of the major causes. My mom was a part of Head Start, man, for almost 40 years. So I saw her. I didn't realize she was subconsciously pouring into me the value of education. So I started teaching, and teaching is a ministry for me. It is something that just flows in my mind and spirit, and it's something that I eat, breathe, and sleep for real. Not the fake stuff that everybody know, but for real, that's something. And I like teaching in an area that a lot of people might overlook, or they might draw certain conclusions if you're teaching. I teach off Martin Luther King, so. But what I find is that when you tap into that greatness that all of us have, especially in children, especially when they're still that impressionable, they tend to produce for you. So that's what I really value about teaching. And the longer that I've taught, the biggest thing now is, I want them to have the book sense. I most definitely want them to have that. But the two biggest things that I try to incorporate, even when I'm teaching English, is the story that you tell yourself about yourself. If you can master that part, other thing I like to constantly is the ability to handle money. And I don't even teach math, but if you can learn to handle money early on in your life and the value of it and what it really means and what wealth really looks like. So those are two things that I really try to drive home. And the last thing I'll say, Doctor, is this. I had to be really creative in the classroom, especially when I first started, because the truth of the matter is I had a bunch of kids that really weren't really consumed by formal education. They didn't really care a whole lot. So what that meant is I had to be really creative. Like what I realized, I got to get children up out their seats. I got to get them moving around. I got to get it competitive. I have to give away stuff. And what I saw was children they bought into the formal education once they bought into me. So having done that for almost 20 years now, I say, man, if I could do this with children who, by and large, who came to the table that didn't want to learn about formal education and just my ability to connect with people, I said, man, what would happen if I took this same skill set and developed a game show about relationships, men versus women? And what I continue to build is a different way to talk about relationships. It's competitive, it's men, it's against women, it's fast-paced, it's thought-provoking. Because one of my beliefs, rightly or wrongly, a lot of people lie to themselves about romantic relationships. So my game, in addition to being fun and edgy and thought-provoking, I hope that it evokes a more genuine conversation about what romantic relationships really are. So I'll stop right there and say that's my spiel about who and what I am.
Wow, I can't wait to talk more. We're going to delve into that some more. What a powerful story. Thanks for sharing. Cyber, you have an incredible story too. It's amazing in terms of you're also an educator. So tell us your story. I want to hear your journey, what has brought you from there to where you are right now.
Well, thank you for having me again. My journey has a lot of parallels with Dave. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I went to Southern University. Yay. I started in education, kind of dipping and dabbing. I taught for a year. Let me back up. So I graduated from college. Then I moved to Atlanta, and I was here for about 13 years. And while I was here, I kind of, was into education, but a series of unfortunate events kind of transpired in Clayton County. And, all of our programs and all of the things were kind of put, on the back burner, which, had I stayed with that, I probably would be a teacher today, but God had a different plan. So then I moved after 13 years here in Atlanta. I moved to the Washington, D.C., Maryland area. And that is where education really sparked for me because I have two older children. And at the time, I was pregnant with my younger son. I was married and pregnant with him. And I just didn't want to, do the conventional thing. I was like, I want to do something. I want to make a difference. I don't necessarily want to be a teacher or, you know what I mean, like per se, but I want to be able to, touch their lives in an impactful way, like a teacher. And so I prayed about it, and Alex was born. He was like, I call it the Jerry Maguire mission statement because, I was just like, okay, I had to break apart what I wanted to do. And, I love teachers. I think teachers should make what NBA players make, and NBA players should make what teachers make. That's my philosophy. So, but, I kind of put together this mixture of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to teach children. I wanted them when they were super excited. I didn't want them all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? So that's how Alex was born. So I said, what can I teach them that they can, start at a young age and build on? And health was, kind of the obvious choice for me. So I created Alex. Just basically to teach young children what their stomach looks like, what their stomach does. And it's so rewarding to see a 5-year-old explain why it's important for your kidneys to drink water, or to have my son who's 8 say, Mom, I want to make a healthy choice. You know what I mean? I want to have grapes instead of Skittles. And and just to kind of empower them to make their own decisions. Because for us, sometimes, we're set in our habits, but for children, you can mold them. And if you give them the tools to be successful at health, then they can build those blocks. So that's kind of the inception of Alex that, gave me the inspiration. But 100%, I enjoy working with children, and I knew that my purpose was to do something with children. So here I am back in Atlanta. I moved. I'm recently divorced, 2 years, and I moved back to Atlanta because Atlanta's awesome, and it's been great to me. So I'm happy to be back, and happy to be here.
Great, thanks for sharing. I can't wait to talk more about Alex and some of the things that you're talking about. Kimberly, you are the last one on here, so I want to hear about your story as well. I think we got some HBCU love on this whole show today.
That's
So
right.
tell us about your story, Kimberly.
Okay, well, I was raised in Greenville, Mississippi. I have a bachelor's degree from Mississippi Valley State. I moved from Greenville to Jackson, Mississippi, where I lived for about 17 years, where I mostly raised my son because he was about 6 when I moved. I was a teenage mother. While living in Jackson, I was fortunate enough to meet some great people, and I worked on a lot of political campaigns. Did a lot of voter registration, did a lot of GOTV, which is get out the vote on election day, but I did a lot of behind the scenes. I'm working on a lot of political campaigns. I have a master's in urban and regional planning from Jackson State. After I finished my master's and my son decided he was finished with college, I moved here, and that was about 8 years ago. After moving here, I joined House of Hope a few months after moving here. So yeah, it's been more than 7 years that I've been a member of House of Hope. The first ministry I joined at House of Hope was the social justice ministry, and I helped to launch the voter registration at House of Hope. And then I was kind of pulled into the singles ministry. Um, And I have been the coordinator for the singles ministry now for about 3 years. And I am going to contact you about us getting together to play your game, David. um, and well, also, I learned a lot about campaigning and civil rights because my mom and my grandmother were very active in the civil rights movement back in Greenville, Mississippi. And even though all of that happened when I was too young to remember or before I was born, as I started working in politics in Mississippi, people would always say, I know your mama, I know your grandmother, I remember her when we marched on such and such. So I guess that part is in my blood. But um, I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's pretty much it.
Outstanding. You know, these are amazing stories, and you all three are incredible. It's a blessing. I'm honored to have this opportunity to talk to you. David, let's talk about, you talked about this whole piece of your mother, and that's kind of like a theme already, and what your mom imparted in you, and Kim talked about what her mother and grandmother imparted in her in terms of the foundation, and of course, Cybers talked about how she's laying the foundation for Alex. But I want to talk about education in terms of your mother, particularly since we just left Mother's Day, and my mom was an educator too. She passed away 4 years ago. But I want to talk about the role your mother played, not just in education, but you being elected to the Board of Education. I want to talk about that. That's very historic because for an African American male to be elected to Cobb County, that was unheard of. When I lived in Cobb County when I was in college. Lived in Austell, so we're talking about the late 80s, early 90s. And so just the thought that an African American male is on the Board of Education for Cobb County, not the Cobb County that I grew up, that I lived in when I was in college. So I want to hear you talk about that story. Just what got you into that point? What made you pursue political office?
Yeah, so my mom, again, it was, it's one of those situations I often hear athletes talk about, say, I grew up with a ball in my hand and shooting or running or I was always around education with my mom. Like, even when it would be summertime and she worked at Head Start, in the summer, she would keep children and she would be teaching them. Now, it wasn't on my mind. I wasn't thinking about teaching, but that's what I saw so much. And I saw the passion my mom had for making sure that children actually learned, like for real learned. So, and the truth of the matter, if I'm being transparent, when I went to Grambling State University, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. That's why I majored in political science. But what I found the missing link was the passion. I wasn't passionate about law, but I've always been passionate about children. And I've always been passionate about children who they don't have the access. They don't have the resources, but they have worlds of potential, sometimes realized, sometimes unrealized. And because I grew up in at Metro Atlanta, in Decatur, a lot of those children, I tell them that, I tell this to them to this day. I grew up with kids just like you. That's how I'm able to connect with you. So what one teacher might see is, oh my God, I just see that as Tony down the street. And I'm able to say, come here, Tony, let's rethink what you're doing. So my mom is the epicenter of my passion for education. And I think one of the biggest tipping points is this. I tell children this: make sure that you get the formal education, but also make sure you get the right education, the right type of education. I know so many people who have formal degrees out the wazoo and they're unhappy and broke. And what I said, wow, how do you marry? How do you combine? What do you enjoy doing? If it's writing, how are we going to maximize that? And how are you going to strategically use that to help you get where you need to get? And what I have found, Dr. Smith, is that those type of conversations with children, they're way more receptive to learning the formal stuff because you're creating a means to an end in their mind. It's not just, man, why I have to learn? Why I read this book or this? Hey, we're going to be strategic about putting you, and this might be wrong, but I tell children this: listen, I'm less concerned about if you make all A's or all B's. What I'm most concerned about is, are you trying your best and are you leveraging your talents? If you do those two things, Mr. Morgan he's gonna be your best friend. Are you trying your best? Are you leveraging your talents? Because I have learned that that is fertile ground in the mind of children. But as I said, it all goes back to what I saw year in, year out from the 30 plus years that my mom was an educator. So, that's where I am right now. I love teaching, and I know it's a ministry. Like, I know that it is. It's not the it's the unsexy thing, because as you said, day in, day out, it's hard work. This is not this is some pretty story. It's hard work. But I know it's a ministry and a calling, and I'm just grateful that I have been chosen to be in a position to help children. So that's what I'll say in terms of my mother in education.
So when you decided to run for public office for the Board of Education,
right.
was that advocating for children? What pushed you into that?
So yeah, very good question. So, and still to this day, it's funny because this might sound like a bit of a contradiction. I'm an elected official, but I hate politics because I'm a real means to an end type person. Like, if you say purple, I'm gonna believe purple. Like, I don't want to be trying to read your mind. Do you really mean purple? Or so this is how it happened. So I was teaching, and after teaching, I became dean of students. Dean of students at my school, basically I dealt with, you came to Mr. Morgan's office because you don't hit little Johnny. So dean of students, I went from dean of students, and in the classroom, I'm concerned about these children in my classroom. I don't have to worry about the 5th grade and 9th grade. So dean of students, I had to deal with my classroom and discipline. Then I fast forward, I became a principal. When you're a principal, there's 2 things I had to be really clear about. I'm responsible for everything that happens in this school, and somebody in that school is gonna be mad at me every day. Be that a child or an adult, somebody every day is gonna be mad at me. And then what I realized is this: there's systemic issues that still plague how we do education. And I realized that that's a policy thing. That's more than just, hey, why is it we have so many Black males who are not competent writers? So to fix that, or to at least begin to fix that, you have to have people writing policy who A, understands it, B, not scared to deal with it, and C, you can stick with it. Because in Cobb County, believe you me, just because you know the best thing, that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna manifest right then. So when I realized that this is a policy issue, I said, I have to be on the school board to start having these conversations that are not even being had. So it has been, even now, because in December, this is my last term, that'll be 3 terms for me, and that's enough for me. But even now, you have to be really persistent, because good policy don't just become good policy overnight. So that's when I realized that I wanted to be on the school board, when I started looking at it from a policy perspective.
It's amazing you mentioned that, because Cyber mentioned in her introduction about some of the policy challenges that she faced when she was here working with Clayton County, and how those things shape her life now. But also, I think it's interesting that you talked about how you want to teach children how to work with money. Cyber has a whole different piece, because it's dealing with health. And I want to talk about that, because many of us were not taught how to manage money, and many of us weren't taught about health from a real practical perspective.
That's
so
right.
Cyber, I want to hear about that. I mean, Clayton County, your whole journey, what made you decide on health? Was that always a passion? How did you get to be this health guru? I want to hear about that.
You're on mute, I think.
Hold on. No,
There
I
we
don't
go.
think so.
Yeah.
Okay, is that
Now
good?
we can
Can
hear
you
you.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing with Clayton County was, I had decided, after working in corporate America, I was working at the Coca-Cola company, and I'm a little different. Like, well, that's another story. That's corporate. But so what happened was I decided I wanted to teach. I gotten a little weary of corporate America. I was like, I really like kids. I really want to be a teacher. So at the time, Clayton County had this Georgia TAP program where, you do this crash course, but if you have a degree and, things of that nature, you can get in the program. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. It's an alternative program. I don't have to go and do all of the schooling, so it's fine. And that year was I was actually a teacher in the classroom in a high school, Forest Park High School. Shout out to Forest Park. Ninth and 10th grade English composition, and it was mind blowing. I mean, I definitely can relate to what you're saying about being in the school and just I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't prepared, but if you have a love for the children, then they see that and then they'll give you, just like you said, they want that. They want that connection. And once they know that, then that's when the layers kind of come down. So I had a really good experience there. And like I said, I would have probably stayed on, gotten my certification, went on to be, a teacher. But it just kind of didn't work out like that. So then I went back to Coca-Cola and decided, okay, I'll do corporate America again. And then from corporate was when I moved to DC, and it was there that I really had that transformation with education. uh, I have a degree in journalism, and again, like, our lives are parallel because when I was in my freshman year in college, I too wanted to be a lawyer. And so I was a psychology major, and then, I just kind of flipped it a little bit and then decided I wanted to do journalism. But at the time that I was studying journalism was kind of on the cusp of sensationalism and journalism. It was like that line that is completely blurred now. It was right on that cusp. And I was really disenchanted with it. So I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. So then I just decided, okay, corporate America is it. So having said all of that, I came back to education, and I was just like, okay, what do I want to do? What is my purpose? It's not going to corporate America for the next 20 years and, 9 to 5. I have to make more of a difference. And this is just me. So I just really, I prayed about it and I was like, okay, what is relevant, what is timely, what can I teach children, what is simple enough for me to learn and do the research and just, give them the functionalities of it. And like I said, I was in DC at the time, and I was fortunate enough to live in DC under the Obama administration. So, it was a lot of energy in the city. And Michelle Obama, of course, her Let's Move campaign um, was very just it was everything. Although at the time I was just starting out with the business, I wasn't trademarked. I was just kind of learning myself, and that was a really big machine, the Let's Move campaign. And I knew that my idea that I had was a brilliant idea, but I didn't have the legalities to kind of back it up. So it kind of stopped me, I guess, from really moving forward full speed with that. But so I just kind of started taking baby steps and just figuring out, different things that I can do. And I put together a presentation, a 45-minute presentation with Alex, my doll that I made. I'm not a seamstress, but I made this doll. He's life size. He's funny. He's over there. But so I just, it was just one thing kind of, I took a step and the stair was there. So that's kind of how it happened spiritually. It was amazing. And so it's kind of, it makes sense a lot of it, but then some of it is no rhyme or reason. But I guess fundamentally, I wanted to do something that had a purpose, something that was that I enjoyed doing. And the first time I did a show, how it made me feel was like it was like I was levitating. I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I have to do. So that's kind of how it all just came about. And
That's
Alex was birthed.
that's a That's awesome. We're gonna come back and talk about that in a minute. Kim, I want to talk to you about something. You said something earlier, and we're still on the hinges of Mother's Day that kind of resonated with me. You talked about you
Okay.
were a teenage mom, and
Yes.
and as a teenage mother growing up, you've made it, and now you have a grown son, and you've gone back to do some things. It resonated because my mother was a teenage mother. She had her first child at 14. When she had 3 children, and she was a kid herself, yours included, but was able to persevere and make it through before she became an educator. So I want you to talk about that journey, your story, from being a teenage mother to where you are now with your son, and now, you're an empty nester, and you're getting ready to
Yes.
write a book about being an empty nester. So kind of tell us about that journey for those who may be watching now, who may be having some children who are going to college now, or the person who may be watching now who has a teenage son. So tell us a little bit about that journey from teenage motherhood to where you are right now.
Okay. Well, I was 17 when I had my son. Um, because of I grew up in a wonderful family. My mom, my aunts, everybody encouraged me. Even though I had him, you know, there was no shortage of babysitters for me to go to school, for me to, have my job. But there was always that thing: don't have another one. You got this here, so don't have another one. So I did go to college. I finished. And then I moved away from my family in Greenville to Jackson, Mississippi. And when I moved, there were a lot of hurdles that I had because I kind of moved away from my support system. But I moved because I felt like I could find a better job and do more for him. Um, my son, I was determined, I was one of those, I was young, but I was determined not to raise a mama's boy, for lack of a better word. So the first thing I did was move to a school system. I did my research to find a school system because I knew I couldn't afford private school at the time. So I made sure I moved to a school system that was one of the top school systems, in the state, to make sure he got the best education. I made sure I stayed involved. And, you know, being a single parent and actually being a teenage parent, you are often criticized, and people want to say, look at you and turn their nose up at you. And when you act as if you are a present parent and that you're involved with your child's education, they look at you like you are a unicorn, so to speak. um, with my son, like most parents, single or married, they kind of make their lives revolve around their children. As they grow older, you know, I never forget, my son was probably about 10. Um, we used to go to church, and on Sundays after church, we would go to the movies. And I never forget, a new Spider-Man movie came out, and I was telling him, I was like, okay, so after church Sunday, we're going to see Spider-Man. And he was like, do I have to go with you? And one of his friends, I never forget, he said, Dietrich mama is going to take all us to see Spider-Man next Saturday, so I don't want to go with you. And I cried. And I wasn't even an empty nester. It was just, he had grown up and he had started to get his own friends and, come into his own with his own life. And even as a teenager, he played football. He tried his hand at football and basketball, but he kind of stuck with baseball. Um, and he, even now, he's still pretty athletic. He played tennis. He's done it all. And he would go on about his business, and I would be sitting there left looking like, what I'm gonna do with myself. So, in my opinion, the empty nester phase can start before they even actually leave the house. And so, as he grew up and he went to college, and at first I was like, oh, I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, I'm gonna have my house to myself. And I remember he and I were going walking one day, and he was, I feel want to say he was a senior in high school, and we were walking around the track one day, and we were talking about him getting ready to go to college and what he was going to do from there. And he told me, he said, well, I want you to get married. I said, you want me to get married? He was like, yeah, because I don't want you to be by yourself. I was like, trust me, I'm going to be okay. But as okay as I thought I would be, it still was a little different. Once you had a child in the house, and being an empty nester is a little different from being single. And that's what I try to remember, even when we do our life groups with the singles over 40. I try to remember that there are different stages of singleness, and being an empty nester, as opposed to someone who's never had children or never been married, your stories are a little different, your journeys are a little different. And as children grow up and move out the house, there certain types of depression come in. And so my book is about how to manage once your children start to leave the house. And at first, my book is a Christian-based book, but at first the book was geared towards single people who were empty nesters. And a friend of mine pulled me aside who's married, and it was a guy. He was like, well, I had empty nester syndrome too, and I have a wife. He was like, everybody experienced that when their children go to college. And I had to think about it. So the more research I started to do, I found that it affects a lot of people, lots and lots of people. So that's it.
That's awesome. When does the book come out?
Well, I'm at the end. I finished it. I'm getting ready it's being edited now, and then I'm sending it to another editor. So I'm hoping by the end of the year. That's my prayer, awesome. By the end of the year.
I can't wait to read. You talk about, your struggles, and it sounds so similar to some of what my mom would talk about, and just battling through that, and battling through the depression, and battling through the different stages, and pre-empty nester, empty nester, post-empty nester, and how it really was a battle. Even raising a child as a single parent is a battle. And I think, David, that's a great segue to you, because you've been talking about some battles that are not necessarily battles with children, battle with I see, but you and battle with youngsters. You seen something that dealt with battle between men and women, and so much that you've developed not just a book but a game show. Tell us about Battle of the Sexes. I mean, where did this all come about, and what gave you impetus to develop this game show?
It's a small world, so I'm gonna say that before I begin this. But I was sitting in church one Sunday, and at a Destiny World Church with Wilbur Purvis, and he did
my best friend. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, wow.
And
we're roommates.
He did
we're roommates.
Wow. See, I don't know if I knew that part. I just knew you. But so he did an entire series on relationships, right? An entire month. And I just noticed how many more people were in church when he did that month. I mean, it was always filled out, but they were having to bring seats in when he did an entire month series on relationships. So I was like, Brother Purvis, do you realize how many more people are here? You talking about relationships? I said, man, relationships are universal. It's just all about how you deliver it. So fast forward, we went into the studio, and he would play the pastor part, and I would play more of the wayward guy, so to speak. We would just debate about relationships. We sent it out, and people liked it. And the only thing they said, yeah, y'all talking about relationship, but y'all need a woman. Like, it's just two men. So we added a lady. We would go in the studio, and we would just debate about relationships. Again, fast forward. By nature, I'm a creative person, and I'm someone, I experiment, right? So what I realized over time was that lane was too crowded. There's a lot of people sit around and talk about relationships. I was like, well, what can I do that's different than just what the market is already saturated with? And again, this goes back to me teaching, getting kids. Like, I said, what if I make it competitive? What if I have teams? What if I put 5 women on one side and 5 men on one side, and I have 3 segments of the show, and I make it fast-paced, I make it thought-provoking, I make it edgy, I mean, you might 1 second you might be answering a question about household finances. The next second you might be answering a question about parenting. Next thing you might be answering about sex. Next time you might be answering about role. It's just, and what I have found is that it's very entertaining and people get really emotional about it. We have men playing against women, and I really try to study my craft. Like, I really watch game shows and how they execute what they're doing. And this is when I knew that the show was somebody called me from Alabama to do a show. I said, cool, we got all the stuff together to do the show. And I got in there and it was all white people. And I was like, oh man, I don't know how this is gonna go over. Like, I know how it goes over with us, but and man, when I tell you they were in there arguing and fussing just as hard as us, I said, this is something that, regardless to race and whatnot, and again, I try to make sure that I craft questions around stuff that men and women probably see differently, whether you're talking about money. I'll give you a quick, very, very quick one. I actually test my questions in the barbershop. That's where I go and just like throw them out, get a bunch of arguments. There's a quick question. I said, man and woman relationship, they've been in a relationship for 3 years. Man gets caught cheating, right? They decide that they're going to reconcile. The next 9 months, she's on him like white on rice. Phone, where you going, and after 9 months, he says, I can't handle all this, and he leaves the relationship. Is he wrong for leaving a relationship, even though he's the one that cheated? That's the question.
Wow.
Is he wrong and typically men will say, no, well, listen, that's where the magic happens. That's where the magic happens, is when you have questions that way, because men and women typically see romantic relationships differently. But in the midst of the laughter and the debating, as I said earlier, I try to create a more genuine conversation around relationships, because I think there's a lot of pretending and what do they call it, cat and mouse games. And so the show is that, as I said, and I've been doing it. I do live shows. So I do them at the Courtyard by Marriott. Last one pre-pandemic. The shows are always sold out. People can't wait to come, and so it's something that I do that I love, and so it's a passion of mine.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Kimberly, you talked about some of the battles you had as a teenage mother, and David, you designed this whole game dealing with battles, and Cyber, you talked earlier about having 2 older children, and now you're 9-year-old, and how you came through a divorce, moved away, and you've been battling through that, and you seem so happy. I want you to talk about that, because I think that's so inspiring, that even after coming through a divorce, life has gone on. You're still smiling. You're still empowered to move. And sometimes it's hard for people to get up and start again. Can you kind of talk about that journey? What has led to your healing? What has led to you getting up and finding happiness and finding peace again? What did you do to get to that point?
Well, it wasn't easy, always. A lot of prayer, a lot of faith. My daughter just graduated from Clark College, and now she's in medical school at Baylor. So I'm so happy about that. I have a son. My 20-year-old son decided to stay in the DMV area. So that's where he is, and so now it's me and my 8-year-old. But it was hard. It was a lot of overcoming fear. Just being. I was clean across the country, without any family, and it was a very trying time. But Alex was born, You know what I'm saying? Like he was born out of that. The idea for Alex, my company now is what was birthed out of that. Um, and so that being, and even still with that, my inspiration wasn't all the way there. Battling with, knowing when a relationship is over and just kind of, going through the motions, waiting, strategically executing your plan to exit, you know what I mean? Like all of that, and then with a young child and, knowing that I eventually was going to move back to the South, to Atlanta. It was a lot. It was a lot, but I prayed. I prayed more then than I think I've ever prayed. And I think that my relationship, well, I know that my relationship was solid, with God and how I felt. And I had to, some days it were dark, and then there were days that were, glimpses of light. But the one thing that I can say, even though the train was slow moving with the business, like I just had no motivation. I had no, I didn't have a lot of inspiration, although I knew this is what it was. It was like God kept giving me little like pushes, like, yeah, you're doing that the right way, or yeah, or I'm like, maybe I should just say, forget this, I'm gonna get a job and whatever, so I can do what I have to do to make these moves. But it worked out where I could work and have the flexibility to maintain my purpose. And even today, since I've been in Atlanta, which I love Atlanta for its respective ability. Atlanta is a great place because it respects ability. And if you come here and you have a plan, then you can execute that plan, and so getting here and getting into that energy was very helpful. On the heels of knowing that I was going to get divorced, my mother passed away. So that was like another, that was like two deaths, basically. So it wasn't all cotton candy. It was not a good time. But I mean, I just have to say, to God be the glory, because he just kept me on focus with the purpose, even though I couldn't really see a lot of how the vision was going to pan out, a year down the line, 6 months down the line with my business. Even moving here, what would I have to do? What kind of moves would I have to make? How would I have to compromise my business to make just ends meet? And but I'm happy now because I see the fruit. I see things, the seeds are growing, and things are kind of coming to fruition. So I'm in a much better place.
That's awesome. But this is all. Listen, you guys have been absolutely incredible, and I appreciate you for sharing. I want everybody to maybe think of one thing, one piece of advice that you can offer, and I'm just going to kind of ask the questions to you based on some of your storylines. So, Kimberly, you moved from one place away from your family, away from your support system. Then you moved from Mississippi to Atlanta to pursue dreams. So you've been one who would pursue dreams. So what kind of word would you share with people? A word of encouragement for those who feel like they're stuck in the same place, afraid to move from their family. What kind of word, your final word, would you say to those who are watching now who are stuck, but maybe this whole pandemic is pushing them to do something different? What would you say to those people, Kimberly?
The first thing I would say is pray about it. And be sure that God is talking to you, and not other people. When you decide you want to do something, I found that it's always better to keep it between you and God at first, and listen to what, pray, meditate, and listen to what He has to say before you disclose your plan to anybody else, because everybody has an opinion whether you ask them for it or not.
Amen.
So once you've heard from God about it, have a plan about how you're going to move, where you're moving to, what support do you have where you're moving to, because that's also important.
That's
Do your
awesome.
research about the job market there if you're moving, and no, just because the first time I moved, I had my son, and I didn't have a support system there when I moved. I really didn't know anybody, so I had to develop that support system. So have a plan and know where you're going and what you're going into, but mostly consult with God.
Amen.
That's great. And thanks for sharing, man. Very very practical, and people can apply that steps. And I appreciate you. You know, David, I want you to kind of talk about what be your word of encouragement, whether it be pursuing your dreams, whether it be starting the game show. What would you say to those growing and sexy individuals from your own experience? Just give a word of encouragement.
Right. I would say two things. First thing I would say is be very mindful and intentional about your self-talk, what you're saying to yourself on a daily basis,
Yes.
because ultimately that is going to dictate how you show up. And the second thing I would say is this, man, be intentional about surrounding yourself with people that's pushing you. You know, people that one, I am hopelessly addicted to inspiration. Like I really am. Like I like it, seeing, living, being around people who inspire. And if you can get that self-talk correct, then you will be able to understand that life in some ways is impersonal. The ebbs and flows of life is almost impersonal. It happens. And if you can have a self-talk saying, you know what, I am going to stay on this path and do what I'm called to do. And then you are able to connect and lean on people that's truly inspiring you. I think it will convict you to continue to try to be the best version of yourself that you can be. So that's what I would say.
That's great. That's great. You know, Cyber, your story is amazing from this perspective. You know, I think it's so powerful. You said it earlier. It's one of the most powerful things that, you know, I think people can say. You know, you went to Southern, you know, you thought about being an attorney, then you went to journalism, then you went to corporate America, you know, then you in education. And I think David mentioned it too. Sometimes in life we go and we get stuck in one place, but those things don't make us happy. You talk about your passion and your purpose. You know, you in journalism, or you think about law, but that's necessarily a passion, your purpose. Some people right now who may be 40 years of age may be stuck and not willing to switch and do something different. What kind of word of encouragement would you tell people, you know, to if you got to move from law to journalism, from journalism to corporate America, from corporate America to education, from Atlanta to DC, from DMV back? What kind of encouragement would you give to people so they won't get stuck in the same place?
Well, obviously, I'm not the stuck kind of person. I'll try it, but that's I would say before you okay, I would say this: we don't live twice. It's not like you live twice. So, for me, when I moved to DC and my husband and I initially was expecting to kind of go back into corporate. I briefly worked for this nonprofit organization in DC. And then I found out I was pregnant, which kind of, was not the career path I was choosing, but it made me stop and say, okay, now hold on. Am I going to, in 9 months, be back at it after 6 weeks or 12 weeks, back at this, or this is my last child? I'm in my 30s and I need to kind of late 30s, and I need to decide, it's either now or never for me, like what I have to, I know I don't want to go back into corporate America. So what am I going to do that fulfills me? And that's when the narrative kind of changed for me, because I was just so used to, of course we grow up and we expect, you go to school, you go to college, you graduate, you get a good job, You know what I'm saying? And you have your 2 week vacations. And to me, for me personally, I just kind of didn't want to operate like that. I wanted to do something that I could feel great about, and, something that where, that was not going to cap my salary, so to speak, where I could use my resources and my talents to, create wealth. And I'm still working on that part, but I just really wanted to do something. So my advice would be, you know, just do something that you really love doing. Take a chance. Why not? And why not start in your 40s? Toni Morrison wrote Beloved when she was like 50 something. You know what I'm saying? And there are a lot of people who kind of start on their second careers or whatever, but I mean, if not now, when? When are we going to do it? Because when we retire, it's like, okay, well, we're just gonna, So I am just from the school of thought where, you know, why not try it? Why not try it? And then I think with that type of energy that you put out there, then God is going to, you know what I mean? When you move, He moves. So, if this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm my purpose and my definiteness of purpose, then God is going to sustain me in this, because we've already made a pact that this is what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So this is what's going to work, and this is what's going to sustain me, and things like that. So I would just say, at some point, if you're feeling like, oh, and I wanted to say, when I thought about Alex, I didn't think about a book. I didn't think about, all of the things that are coming down the pike, like retailing a shrunken version of him, or, you know what I mean? It's just like, when you start something small, it's like you get all of these ideas that enhance it and make it bigger. So even now, although, it's on a smaller scale, the ideas are far bigger than I could have ever imagined. So, I just feel like if we allow ourselves to dream and allow ourselves that opportunity to see what else is inside of us, that doesn't necessarily require a job description, then we would be amazed at the things that we are capable of. So, I would encourage people to just, start that business, write that book. Why not? It's not as bad, it's not as hard. Well, it's work, but it's it's so rewarding, because you can say, this is something that I did because I wanted to do it, because it was purposeful to me. So that would be my advice.
This is amazing. You all have been amazing, and Kimberly, we look forward to your book coming out, and your social media information. People gonna be able to contact you as well, and David, wish you the best in terms of finishing out your last term of the Board of Education, and your game is called to Love to
Live
Live.
presents Battle of the Sexes.
That was sexist. And so,
Yes.
if people reach out to you on your social media handles, which
Yes,
are up now, they'll be able
they
to
are.
contact you. And so you go different places, do that game, basically.
I
So
do.
family
Yes, I
reunions,
do.
okay, outstanding. And that's great. And Cyber, your book is out, your website is here.
Yes,
So people
my
want you
book
to
is
bring
called
Alex.
Alex Goes to Oregonville. And Oregonville is the city that lives inside our skin. And although we all look different on the outside, we are a lot alike. So basically, this is just kind of some illustrations, but that's the stomach. So Alex takes us on a journey after he bites an apple, and then it goes into our esophagus. I'm sorry, let me see if I can see that. Oh no, here it is. And then we kind of talk about, it's a rhyming book, so it's really fun. And the children get to learn, what happens after we take our first bite of food, what our liver does. And it's like a fun little journey that they can remember, and, hopefully utilize in their daily lives.
I love it, and your information is on the screen there. So if somebody wants Alex, want to get the book, Battle of the Sexes, and Kimberly, your book is coming out. I just want to thank you all for being a part of Growing in Sex today. This has been a very rich conversation. very inspirational. And I think in these tough times of pandemic, people need inspiration, and you can't get enough inspiration. I think you mentioned earlier, David, you are addicted to inspiration. That's who I am too. I just think it's all about hope, getting back up, and spreading love. So we're gonna close this section of Grown and Sexy, but you've been blessed today as I have. I hope you have been as blessed as I have by listening to the stories from Kimberly, from David, and Cybra. Just incredible people with incredible stories, with incredible journeys. And if they can do it, we can do it too. And so we're gonna log off. I want to send some love and light to everybody's way, and hope you're enjoying this week, and be encouraged, and always know this, that we'll get through this if God is on our side. So if you be good to God, God will be good to you. You've been watching this segment of Grown and Sexy of the Hope TV. Until next time, peace. God bless you. Thank you. Thank y'all. Y'all awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.